Hello, I'm Microsoft MVP Tom Morgan. It is time to talk about Microsoft Build 2022. We're going to go through the sessions. I'm going to show you which sessions have caught my eye. Let's get into it. So Microsoft Build this year is May 24th to 26th. It is online only and it is free. It's over 3 days and it's being delivered in over 6 languages. All right, so I've picked out 20 sessions that I think you might find interesting, and they're across 5 sections that we're going to cover. We're going to look at a section devoted to just getting everyone up to speed, an overview, catching up over the past 12 months. We've got a section on going into some detail around things we've already seen announced, but we haven't had a lot of detail over, and real kind of diving into the how-to of some of those announcements. We've got a section devoted to roundtables and discussions, a section for new announcements and just new things coming. I know for lots and lots of you, places like Build are where you go for the big announcements, so there's a whole section devoted to those. And then I've got another section that I've just called other things that are interesting but don't really fit in any of the other categories, but I wanted to kind of call them out anyway. All right, we've got 20 sessions to get through. I've got them all open on my browser. I've got 20 open tabs. Let's get into it. Okay, we're going to kick things off in the overview and catching up session. And right off the bat, I would like to think that if you're watching this or you're listening to this, you probably know what this channel is about. You know what I'm about. I'm all about Microsoft Teams platform development. So I'm kind of thinking you probably already know a little bit about Microsoft Teams platform development already. But if that's not true, if you're coming to this for the first time, you are really welcome. Go and check out this session called Everything You Need to Know About Microsoft Teams Platform in 30 minutes or less. It is a grand tour, that's how it's been built. You can expect it to be high level and just go through all of the different capabilities that exist in the Microsoft Teams platform. This is a really good idea actually, because the platform has become lots of different things. There's lots of different extensibility points. You've got things like bots, you've got tabs, there's all the stuff you can do in meetings, there's low code, there's no code, there's pro code. This is billed as a code first session, so there's going to be lots of different examples on how you can do things. So if you're coming into this space for the first time, this is a great one to start off with at Build. By the way, I'm going to put links to all of these sessions. Links are going to be in the description, split out by the categories. So don't worry about trying to search for it in the Build catalog. I'll put links to every single session in the description. Okay, let's go on to the next one. So still in this overview section, there's this is going to be a really good session. So this is not a Microsoft delivered session. This is delivered by 2 MVPs who are very good at delivering and have previously given talks together, Louise and Yannick. They're going to be talking about creating meeting apps for Microsoft Teams. So there's a specific set of functionality and extensibility points for Microsoft Teams meetings. So if that sounds interesting to you, and it should because we're doing an awful lot of meetings at the moment, then go check this out. This is a really good way of catching up with all the new stuff and the stuff that's been coming over the past kind of probably year and a half maybe around functionality for meetings. So go check out that. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be lively. That you're going to walk away with lots of useful information. Next up, building collaborative apps to thrive in a modern workplace. Again, I don't think that this session is going to be breaking loads of new things. I think they're going to be talking about things like best practice, showing some demos. Maybe you're going to look at some app templates as well. You know, I'm a big fan of app templates, so this feels like it might kind of fit nicely into that as well. Again, this is good for just catching up. Getting a broad understanding of where Microsoft Teams apps and the platform play fits into the modern workplace. And finally in this section, this one, reach 250 million users and grow your business with Microsoft Teams. Again, this feels like a catch up on all the things that have been new since the last time we had a build, but it's also going to be covering not just Teams, it's also going to be covering Azure, and it's also going to be covering Azure Communication Services, which I have talked a lot about because I'm super interested about the play between Microsoft Teams and Azure Communication Services. You've already seen lots of videos and blog posts from me about it, and I'm sure you're going to see many more. This is a good session to go to get on the same page and get some of that excitement that I'm feeling, because I've looked into it and I see what's coming and I see what you can do today as well. And there's lots of things you can do today that I don't see many people doing, and I think that's what this session is going to be about. All right, so those are some sessions, 4 sessions, in fact, that you can use to just catch yourself up, get a good overview of what's going on in Microsoft Teams on the developer side, and just catch yourself up to everything that's happening. So once you've done that, it's time to dig into some detail and really kind of start to understand some of the mechanics of some of these integrations in loads more detail. And there are some sessions just for you that are focused on doing that. And that is going to be what my next 4 session picks are all about. Okay, so this first one is all to do with virtual events and virtual scenarios. It's using Azure Communication Services, it's using Teams, and it's using Graph. The stuff we were just talking about in that last overview session, this feels like it's the deep dive. Okay, so this feels like it's going to be how you can use some of that stuff, how you can use Microsoft Identity, how you can use Teams meetings, and how you can deliver virtual events, virtual visit scenarios using both Graph, using bookings, and using ACS together. It's a really nice scenario that's being set up there, and so I'm really interested to see how like a Microsoft speaker is gonna, because the person giving this session is a Microsoft speaker, so I'm interested to see how Microsoft would solve this problem using the tooling they have and see some examples and see that worked out. So that sounds like a really good one to go to for some of that detail of exactly how does that stuff work. Next up, building real-time collaborative apps with Azure, Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. So this is a really interesting one. Again, digging into a little bit more detail, and the key thing here, the bit that made this go onto the pick, is the Fluid Framework and Azure Fluid Relay. So the Fluid Framework, Azure Fluid Relay, in case you don't know, that's the technology behind Loop. So this is developers, because don't forget that Microsoft Build is not just about Teams developers, which is where we're all like, I'm thinking of Loop in Teams right now. That's true, but Loop is built on the Fluid Framework and Azure Fluid Relay, all of which is available to use today for developers. So actually developers can build real-time collaborative apps today using Azure, using Microsoft 365, using the Power Platform. And so this feels like a deep dive into doing that. So if you're a developer in the team space, or even tangentially to the team space, I think you will want to attend this to understand in detail how the Fluid Framework works, how Azure Fluid Relay works, looking at SignalR, looking at Azure Functions. The nice thing I saw about this session, just looking through the abstract, is that there's going to be a front-end application to demo to just show you how all this stuff fits together and pieces together in the real world. So that sounds like a really good one to kind of get some real deep dive detail. Next up, how to open your app to cross-organizational collaboration with Microsoft Teams Connect. Okay, so Microsoft Teams Connect already announced, we already know it's out there, allowing organizations to use shared channels. What does that mean for your applications? What does that mean for apps that you've already got that work in channels? How do they work in shared channels? What's different? What's changed? What signals can your app use to understand that it's living in a shared channel versus a non-shared channel? This is the session for you, so really diving into some of that detail around shared channels and around using Teams Connect. So real nice detailed dive there for that one. And then finally in this section, monetizing your third-party apps for Microsoft Teams. Again, this is not new information. If you listen to my videos, if you listen to the podcasts or read the blog, you'll know I've talked before about how you can now monetize your third-party apps, how you can charge money for them, how you can put them on different subscriptions and charge money for them being in the App Store. This is the detail on how you do that. So James Skay is Microsoft, and he's going to be talking through in a kind of 200 level session. So it's not going to be a full-on deep dive, but he's going to be telling you how you set this stuff up, the steps you need to go through, because it sounds like there's going to be 5 technical components. So it sounds like a relatively complicated setup process that you'll need to understand, and some best practices as well that you can step through. So this is for you if you've seen that announcement about monetizing Teams apps. It's something you want to do, but you don't really know how. Go to this session and James will explain all of that for you. All right, we've been through the first 2 sections. So by now you've done an overview, you've caught up with what's going on, and you've got into some real detail about the things you really care about. The next thing we're going to talk about are roundtables and discussions. Now, I've only picked out 2 sessions in this section, and actually that is unrepresentative of the number of roundtables and product discussions that have taken place across Build. Build is a very collaborative event this year, but I did want to pick out just two to kind of talk through with you. The first one is called Innovative Collaboration in vNext Teams Apps. Okay, so this kind of sounds interesting because there's a whole list of APIs around the Teams calling SDK, the search API, the transfer API, which I don't think I've ever heard of before, and Exchange APIs, and how you can tie all these things together to create Microsoft Teams apps that work with other Microsoft 365 technologies. So this sounds like a super interesting discussion to have. If you are a blue sky thinker, if you like joining the dots of different Microsoft technologies and coming up with new solutions, I think you'll find this interesting. I'm definitely going to try and make this discussion because I love discussions like this where it's a kind of what if, how about this, how about that, what you could do that from over there, you could do that from over there, and just really try and think through some scenarios. So that's a really interesting one. I'm looking forward to attending. And then the other roundtable discussion I wanted to bring your attention to is a massive plug for my roundtable discussion, which is talking about how we can help more non-developers write Microsoft Teams apps. This is something I've been thinking about for a while. We have all of the tooling in place, and we know that Teams has all these different ways for non-developers to contribute and to start building applications and just help themselves be more productive every day. Lots of low code, lots of no code as well. But it doesn't always seem the case that users do, always kind of run towards those tools and do always kind of, are ready to go and get there. And I want to look into why that is. Are we putting them off? Is it our fault? Is it their fault? Is it the tooling? Is it the environment? Is it time? What is it? Let's talk through what those barriers are and what those roadblocks are, and if there are things that we can do to take them away. So that's what my discussion is going to be about. It'd be great to see you there. It's in the schedule. You can find it. And again, links are going to be to all of these are going to be in the description. Next section, new announcements. So I don't know. I've got no, knowledge of whether each of these sessions is going to contain new announcements or not. All I can do is look at the titles, look at the abstracts, look at the people, and try and make some educated guesses. The first of those is this one. So this is always a good one to go to anyway. The Future of AI Development Tools is a big kind of high-level keynote. Kevin Scott is the CTO and EVP of Technology and Research at Microsoft. So he's going to be talking in high level detail, at a high level about AI, how it's moved on, how advancements in tech are going to filter down into the work developers do. And so this is a good kind of level set of the things that are coming, the things to look out for, and where Microsoft think a lot of this future of AI stuff is going to be going. And it's sort of specifically as it pertains to development tools as well. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Next up, what everybody needs to know about synchronous collaboration in Microsoft Teams meetings but didn't know how to ask. Now, I don't know what this is, but the abstract calls out that you'll be the first to learn about how Microsoft Teams can help you create unparalleled collaborative experiences for hundreds of millions of users. So I don't know what these collaboration capabilities in meetings are going to be. I don't understand particularly what it's going to be a code-focused session. That's easy for you to say. It's going to be a code-focused session talking about some of these capabilities. So this sounds like new developer capabilities to allow people to collaborate better in meetings. That sounds like something very interesting. And so I will be going to this to find out what that is. Next up, a deep dive into the Microsoft Graph SDKs. Now, I nearly put this in the detail section. However, the abstract talks about how it's plans for the next generation of Microsoft Graph SDKs and how you can use them in different languages. And also a little hint about an SDK generator technology, which I'm going to talk about later on as well, because there is another session all about that as well. So again, this is good for this is coming. And also it's kind of right on the edge of cutting edge and announcements. So definitely worth checking out if you do anything with Microsoft Graph. And who doesn't these days? Next up, Microsoft Teams. Are you ready for the metaverse? Okay, so this is definitely in the kind of new announcement stuff because Mesh for Microsoft Teams is coming. We know that, but it's not here yet. this is a discussion, a panel discussion, or a roundtable discussion about what does that actually mean. So let's leave aside the technicals for a minute. We know Mesh for Microsoft Teams is coming. What's that actually going to look like for our day-to-day work? How we interact with people, how we, in office versus hybrid versus at home versus on the road versus something else. An interesting discussion with Chris Hord and Vesa Noperman, both excellent MVPs who really know their stuff in this area. So I think this will be really interesting, and I'm looking forward to taking part in that discussion as well. Next up, again, we're still in the kind of new announcement space, developing real-time collaborative Azure web apps with Fluid Framework. So this, again, Fluid Framework, relatively new. And the abstract for this calls out that Microsoft want to understand how developers could use Fluid Framework inside real-time collaborative applications. So I think this is a really good mix. There's a Azure Fluid Relay Client SDK, which sounds very interesting. The abstract also says that it's going to GA in summer of this year, so it's definitely new stuff. So that is worth checking out as well, to just kind of get yourself up to speed with some of those things that are coming. So look out for that. That's going to be a very interesting session, I think. And finally, in this section, another one. So this is interesting. Another session that is quite similar to the one we just had, building collaborative web apps with Fluid Framework and Azure Fluid Relay. A bit more of a demo session, I think. A bit more focused on the tech rather than just having a discussion about where it could go. Looks like they're going to do some demos, show some code samples, Microsoft and partners. So that's interesting because it means there'll be third-party demos from other companies that have already taken this and built things with it. That's a good indication of something that is definitely, about to be announced or is there already because other people are using it. And also interesting to get, according to the abstract, a glimpse into Fluid Framework's roadmap around supporting complex data. So that's interesting as well, I think. So quite a lot of to take in there. I think maybe, I don't know, this is a bit of a pitch, but I feel like at this build we're going to hear more about Fluid Framework, Azure Fluid Relay, Loop components in Microsoft Teams, and how all that stuff fits together, because it's all continuing at pace, it's all barreling along, and I think it feels like maybe this is the time to start talking about it. So we'll have to see. The final section is a collection of sessions that I couldn't really figure out where to put anywhere else, but I really wanted to tell you about because I think they're really interesting. So let's get into those. The first one, accelerate your website development with the low-code tools. Okay, so Power Apps Portals is an interesting branch of Power Platform, allowing you to go and create nice, secure, responsive websites that can very easy to stand up, and you don't need to be a website designer to use. So a good low-code introduction to creating websites. I think it'll be interesting to see if there's any announcements in this space about them, because they haven't really been massively touted yet. So I think that's going to be kind of an interesting one to see what's happening with them. And I think it's interesting to see, like, this is worth keeping an eye on, because some of these things start as, they start off as a kind of thing on the side, and then they go in and they morph into something a little bit bigger. They become like a framework, they become a platform. It's interesting to see you've got Power Apps for creating apps. There isn't really anything for creating websites and web apps on that side of things, really. So maybe this is how that starts. So I think this is, if you're a developer, even if you don't do websites, I think this is worth understanding and knowing that it exists, understanding what it can do, what its capabilities are, and what the roadmap for it is. Because then either, if you do need to do a website or you have something like that, you can easily go, this is somewhere you can go to quickly get it done. Or even better, you can take the person that asked you for your said website and you can point them at it, and then they can go and do it. And then everybody wins. So I think that was an interesting one. This is an interesting session that I almost put in the catching up, I almost put in the detail. It's called Innovate with Collaborative Apps and Low Code. And it's going to be a fairly high level one, because both the speakers are CVPs. Charles Lamanna is CVP for Business Apps and Platforms, so Power Platform. Jeff Teeper is CVP for Teams and also OneDrive, I think, and something else, and SharePoint. And these two are going to be talking with each other throughout a session, talking all about collaborative apps and low code. So if you are playing in the low code Microsoft Teams space, I would highly suggest this is something you want to see. And also, I don't know, I've got an inkling that maybe this is a session that has announcements. Two CVPs talking with one another, a fairly vague abstract. I don't know, we'll see. Maybe we can expect some new features around Power Platform and Microsoft Teams working closer together in the future for low-code collaborative apps. We'll see. Next up, I spoke briefly before about one of the sessions that was talking about the Microsoft Graph SDKs and a generator for some of those SDKs. That's what this sounds like. So this is a really interesting session. Kyoto, an open API SDK generator around Microsoft Graph SDKs. So if you know anything about Microsoft Graph SDKs, you've got a variety of different APIs historically that have come together under one big umbrella to share documentation, to share authentication, to share a permissions model, a throttling model, a licensing model. But under the hood, they are all still talking to different services. And so the SDK coverage on them can be flaky. This sounds like, there's an initiative in Kyoto to go, generate, if you like, from the code, generate an open API SDK. And that sounds like an amazing idea for Microsoft Graph, which really needs something like that. So this is a really interesting session that I'm going to be attending to understand more about this. And I really want to kind of find out more about Kyoto and where it's going. So that sounds super interesting. All right, we're nearly done. There's one session left I want to tell you about. And then we can all go to the session scheduler yourself, and you can go and look at these sessions and decide, actually, I don't want to go to any of those. I'm going to go to a whole bunch of other ones that Tom didn't even see. And that's fine too, because everybody can get to make their own session schedule app build this year, and that's all the beauty of it. So the last session I do want to tell you about, though, involves Panos Panay, which is interesting to me. So Panos Panay, in case you don't know, he's a EVP and Chief Product Officer. So he owns Windows and devices. So that's his bag. And he's going to be talking along with Kevin Gallo, who's a CVP for Developer Platform, and Stephen Bathich, who is a Microsoft Technical Fellow. An interesting one, right? Because what do these people have particularly in common with build and developers? Well, obviously Kevin Gallo as the CVP of the Developer Platform, that makes sense. But why are these people coming together to talk about next-gen experiences at scale with Windows? And I don't know. I don't know what that means. I don't know what powering your app development and reaching more users with an open platform and open store of Windows means. Again, the reason I'm putting this in here, this feels like a session that might be an announcement session because it is quite vague and the people list is interesting. So we're just gonna have to wait and see, I think, on this one, and see what happens. And it could be nothing, could be something. We'll have to wait and see. Those are my 20 sessions that I'm going to be putting into the schedule builder and I'm going to be catching up on. Some of them happen outside of UK hours, but that's okay because everything is recorded. Everything can go into your build backpack and then you can watch it at your leisure, which is fantastic. Let me know what you think in the comments. Have I missed some? Have I missed your session? Are you presenting a session? I really should watch it and I haven't told you. Sorry, but do let me know about it. Anything else that you've seen that's interesting? Let me know what you think. And after build has happened, we'll come back and we'll talk about it all over again. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. You can subscribe anywhere you want, really. LinkedIn, Twitter, podcast, YouTube, RSS on the blog, whatever you want to do. Have a great one. Have a great Microsoft build. I hope you get to the right sessions. I hope you learn a lot. I hope it's fun. I hope you manage to network and connect with your peers because that's really important right now. Have a great one, whatever it is you are doing, and I will see you again on the next video.